right? So let's see how can we refactor this into ECB. So I'm just gonna say that I'm just gonna use all this again. Like that. And I would like to have my account be labeled as an entity. It doesn't allow me to do that, so alright. Anyways, okay, here we go. Right, and I would like to leave the kind of methods that relates to these guys. It relates the actual attributes. So I would like to leave, let's see, check logged in. Obviously, create account is gonna be a controller one, and it is using account valid, right? Controller, remember, controller means it takes something from the input, from the boundary, and goes and checks it in the database or in the stored files. A login is the same thing, it takes inputs, right? So I think that's it. Set account operates on the levels, right? Logout separates operates on the instance level attributes. So set account, log account, check login, they operate on these variables. Either they set them to something, they initialize them to none, right? Or check their conditions. So I think this is the entity. That's enough for the entity, right? So let me just this. Just want to make it small as possible because it's gonna get a little bit bigger now. Okay, and let's make a create account controller. Note that you can make something like manage account controller, and manage account can contain create account and login, but I'm just gonna separate them. Okay, you don't have to have a controller for every method. This is what I'm trying to say here. All right, let's say that this is gonna be associated with entity. Typically I'm going to have, I think it's the other way around, right? So if we have the controller, we should know the entity, right? We can access the entity, and typically this means that I'm going to send an object from account, as you're going to see in a minute, into the controller. So I should have an account object. You're going to understand this in just a minute. Of type account, and I would have, what method do we need here? It's just the create account method that takes username, password, and email. And note that this is not a, since we made a controller especially for it, so this is not going to be a class variable, a class method anymore. It was a class method when it was inside the entity. And we're gonna need here check valid, which checks username and I think email, and that's it. And let's say that we will need as well a controller for login in. And this guy is gonna have an account object as well. And this is gonna have the login method. that we have taken away from the account as well. Let's take username and password. And I'm going to do something redundant here. I'm going to say logout, and you're going to understand why for a minute. Logout is just going to be a method that calls logout from the account object that we have passed here, right? And what else do we have? And we will have here two of this guy, and I'm going to take away all of these stuff, and you're going to understand why. But we will typically have a boundary. This is going to be the view when the user is trying to register. He's a new user, so this is the new account UI. Okay, and this is the logged in or logged in account UI. Boundary. Alright, and I'm gonna see what each one actually entails. Just a minute. Alright, so this is my new ECB refactoring. Alright, so let's go to my project here, folder. Let's make a new folder and call it CRS ECB version 2. I'm just saying version 2 because already I have a version 1, right? And I'm going to need some couple of, so I'm just going to open this in the Explorer. I'm going to take some couple of stuff. This is what we typically made. I'm just going to copy this and paste in here. Okay. And now this is my current working directory. Now let's modify the account. Account now only have check logged in. It doesn't have the login, right? So let's make a account or login, for example, controller .py. Let's make a create account controller.py as well, and let's define this as create account controller. I just want it to have the same name as the file. Alright, so now we're gonna see that create account controller takes an object of account like that. So that's, I think that's the only instance variable that we need. Account object, and then it's gonna have check account, and it's gonna have create account from the account.entity. Okay, but not as class method, rather instance method. Alright, and we need to update that account, since that account now is existent inside the accounts object. Remember, it's still inside the account. It is still a class variable inside account. And I remember I told you in the previous video that if you have a class method or a class account, you don't have to access it from the class. If you have an object of that class, the object can access its instance method and it can access the upper level, which is the class level methods or variables. So the object can do that trick as well. All right, like this. And what else? That's it. Yeah, finally. Like that, and this should do the create account controller. Now let's take a look at the login controller. All right, login controller as well is gonna have just a account object, the same account object that will be being sent into the create controller we sent to him. Like this, and we are going to take the login method from the account, put it there. Notice that we are using accounts, so the object is gonna serve in this part, and that's typically it. And that's the redundant part that I'm talking about. We're gonna have a method for logout. So this is just gonna call logout from that object. That log out like that. All right. Okay. And now that's this part. We finished this area, this and those. Let's just create the boundaries here, which is going to be the annoying part, to be honest. Okay, so the boundary, let's create a new account UI, and let's create logged in account UI, and we're gonna break the UI terminal class that we've made into pieces. Okay, first of all, that's the UI terminal. It has a command. That's the main concept that is operating in. And typically we have commands for creating a new account, commands for creating a new account controller, and commands for creating or logging in, which is the logging in controller. So the logging in controller has two commands, and the create account controller has one. I mean by this that the command is going to be existent in both of these UI boundaries. Like in the boundary of the logged in user or the existing user, we have a command, and we have commands as well for the new user. So there is a command in both of them. So let's say new account UI, right? And this is gonna have a constructor, and notice that the new account by, which is dependent on the create account controller, it should have an object, as you see here, right? So that had an object of account, that had an object from account, and typically this is gonna have an object from create account controller, right? Because think of it in that way. If the user wants to create a new account, right, then this guy should have access to create account method. How would this guy would have an access to create account method without actually having an object of the controller that has the method inside of it, right? So we're gonna have create account controller created in the Bootstrap or the main script and sent to this guy on runtime whenever the project or the program starts. So there is the create account controller object. That's a very ugly name, I know. Like that. right? And it should have a self.command as well. Okay, and it's going to have the same stuff as handling command. I'm not gonna change any of the concepts that I've made earlier. I'm just gonna minimize them. Handle command here is going to handle commands related to creating new accounts, so that if statement, and that else is going to do the trick. Alright, and it's going to have handle inputs and create account inputs as well. Okay, but handle inputs is gonna handle inputs for create account only. Okay, and we are going to change the implementation here to make it a little bit simpler than the one I've used before. And finally, we used to have a display options, right? That's the new thing right now. Display option, I'd rather have it inside my main script. So I'm just gonna set this to be commented like that. I'm going to show you how would we have it in the main or the Bootstrap script. Okay. All right. I'm going to discard that middleman function that we called run that uses actions. I wanted to have these actions just to show you how to write cleaner code, but after some point after I finished the video I thought that maybe this is kinda complexer and maybe this is going to make you a little bit unease when you try to understand things. So I'm just gonna omit all of this. If you like this method, you can keep on using it, that's totally fine, but I'm just gonna take it away. And now when we are handling inputs, and instead of that run, since we don't have run, if the user wanted to create an account, I'm gonna take inputs from create account, and the old trick is gonna be there, meaning that I'm going to return values. I'm gonna return these values, store them in variables like that, and once I have these variables, right, I can just call create account method from the create account controller object. Remember, the create account controller object has the create account method that has the same implementation. It just needs these three variables, but now it can be found in the create account controller. That's why I sent a create account controller object into the new account UI, or I didn't want to call it create account UI. It's just it didn't seem a good naming choice, right? So now I'm gonna say from the create account controller object that's really long. Now create that account and take these three variables. Alright. Notice that the refactoring it's not gonna take that much time, to be honest. Okay? Alright. Alright, and that's about the new account UI. Let's see the where is it? The logged in account UI. It's gonna have an object of login controller. So let's just write this already. Controller, which is it's a type of create account. Controller class, and the same thing goes here. So this is gonna have a login controller object. This guy has a I'm just gonna leave the methods for now, right? So let's just say that this is gonna have an object of login controller. And it should have a command as well. Alright, and the same trick. So this is gonna have from the UI terminal, it's gonna have the same handle command, handle inputs, so we are just looking for the li like that, and the logout, and we are looking here for the same stuff as well. And we look for the login inputs as well. We need to have this. And then it's gonna return the same stuff. So this is gonna return. We don't really need to use run anymore. Login input, and just we are going to call the login from the login controller. That login from the login controller, from the role controller object. Okay. So like this, and the same thing goes here. I'm just gonna call logout. Logout doesn't take any arguments, like that, and that's it. Now let's take a look at the create controller boundary, or the new account UI boundary. Or I think, yeah, we just did that. I'm sorry, we just did that. Now let's take a look at the main script. Let's see how would it change. Where is it? The Bootstrap file, right? First of all, let's just let's update the methods that we have, so that this one has, it has like the same things from here. So all of these, that's the new account UI. There is no get prompt, there is no login input, and this is going to have there is no get prompt here as well. There is no create account input. So that's it. That's that. And we have command in both of them. Right? Alright, let's take a look at the Bootstrap file now. Now, notice the series of imports, because this is the annoying part, to be honest. So this is the imports and object creation that is going to be happening inside the Bootstrap, right? Now, that's the same, that's the entity, that's the same, right? Now, that's a little bit different now. We don't have a UI terminal, actually. So we need to import the controllers. So from create account controller, file, get me the class from the login controller, get me the login controller class, and from the new account import the new account UI, import new account, and from logged in account UI import logged in UI, and I think that's all about it for the time being, right? We don't have this port anymore. Now let's create an account of the account. So let's say that these are object initialization, this part, and this is the imports, our system imports. So here, let's say that this is the main program or main loop. Okay, so I'm going to create an object of create account controller. Okay, create account controller, actually, if you remember, takes an object of the account, and the login is the same. So let's say that this is the login controller. Both of them take the account object that we have just created here. So let's save this in a variable and call it create account controller, and that's login controller. All right, and let's create an object of the UIs, the new account UI, and notice that the new account UI takes an object of the create account controller object, and logged in account UI takes an object of the logged in controller or the login controller. Okay, so new account UI is gonna take the create account controller, and this guy is gonna take the login controller. This is the login account or logged in account controller. I'm just gonna call this NA UI, and this is gonna be logged in UI. Okay, so let us put this in a chronological order. So that's the create account controller and their UI, and that is their login controller and their UI. Alright, now let's see the main loop. Before the main loop, let's have some function definitions. So I'm going to have the display option here that was in the UI terminal that I didn't put in neither of them. If you looked closely, there is no display options in neither of them. That's just a different strategy for designing this. Okay, so let's say that display option is going to have a controller. Some controller is going to be sent to it. Now notice that each controller of these, each controller contains an account object, whether it's a create account controller or whether it's a login controller, right? Both of them has the account object, right? As you see here, both of these controllers has the same account object being sent to them. So from any of these controllers, I can actually check the logged in. From that controller, I can check on the account object. Like both of them has the same attribute. Look closely, both of them has the account object like that. So using any of them, I can check the account object inside of them and see if the user is logged in or not. If he's logged in, then this is going to be printed. If not, then this is if I'm sorry, if he's not logged in, this is going to be printed. If he's logged in, then that's the view that he gets. So what about the self prompt? Where do we get this from? Okay, so I'm just gonna take the self prompt from there, comment this out, and I'm going to have the get prompt as a function definition as well here, like that. And the same stuff. I'm going to send the controller, any controller, right? And I'm going to see from any controller that is being sent, I can access the account object, and hence I can access the check logged in method. If the guy is not logged in, then I'm going to set the prompt as an empty prompt like that, right? So the prompt return, let's say that this is going to return an empty string. Else, right, then this is going to return, we don't really need an else here. This is going to return this part right there. If he's logged in, then this is going to return this part. And we can, from the account object, which is going to be universal for both controllers, which is this guy, right? We're going to check from the controller that is being sent to this function, I'm going to check the username. Okay, so this is that. Now let's take a look at the loop. Now the display option is actually a function. It's a normal function in my script that takes a controller. So typically any controller would work here, since both of them can access check logged in. It doesn't really make a difference which one do you send to check to display the options, this one or this one. So I'm just gonna go with the first one, which is create account controller, right? And now get prompt is just a normal it's a normal function, and it takes an attribute. Let's say that it takes a controller. It doesn't make a difference as well, because we are checking from that controller logged in from the account object, which is in both of these controllers. All right, and here where things a little bit gets interesting. Now we would want to differentiate. Notice that this reply corresponds to one of these commands that the user was going to enter. So if the reply is equal, let's just say that upper here. Okay, if it is equal to, for example, create account, then some stuff is gonna happen, right? Else, or not really else, but if the reply that upper is actually found to be equal to li, or log out, then this is where the login controller is going to be handling stuff like that. So now if the command is create account, then we would handle that command from the new account boundary, right? From the new account boundary, we're going to handle that command, which the new account UI is being stored in the NA UI. This is the current UI that is handling the commands for the create account, which is going to pass things into the controller that we have passed to him, which is the create account controller. All right, and typically this is gonna return a command response like that one. This is gonna be printed. All right, okay, so let's just print that command response. All right, so now if the command was found to be create account, for example, we would want to handle that the inputs for that commands. So from new account UI handle inputs, and I think that's it. Okay, I don't know why am I printing the reply here. Let's just call this command response. And gonna be changed here, there as well. And if the reply is one of these, then we would use the logged in UI, right? We call it logged in UI to handle the command, right? And if the same thing, I'm just gonna copy this. Like that. Alright? If the command response was there and it was equal to either one of these guys, you're gonna handle the inputs using the log UI, logged in UI, like that. And typically that's it. Let's try to run the program. Now there's an indentation. Let's see the kind of problems that we have here. Where is that? Line 27 in the Bootstrap. Oh, okay. Alright, let's try again. Syntax error in account valid. Account valid is inside create controller. Ah, there is it. Okay, let's try one more time. Now let's try to create account. Let's say idle email. So account should be created. We have idle, that's correct. Now let's try to log in. Let's say idle, or alright, there's a problem. Login controller has no attribute username. That was invoked first from where? From Bootstrap, from handle inputs, and then from the logged in account UI, and then from the login object controller. Alright, let's take a look here. The login account UI in handle inputs, right? Line 22. So there is a problem with login in the controller. Let's take a look at the controller. Alright, so that's login. So what is the deal here? That's the problem, this line. If self username equals this guy. Oh yeah, yeah. Because username is an attribute inside account object. I totally forgot that. Okay, so we're gonna modify every single one of them. Okay, and what else do you have? Set account is an attribute of the account object as well. And this should be it. Let's run again. Now I'm logged in as Ahmed. Let's try to log out. And it works. Alright. And that's the first part of the system. Now just for consistency, in the ECB product folder, I'm just going to take the things that we don't need anymore. So I'm going to remove the UI terminal, since we have UIs for both of the views. And we don't really need the, where was it? And that's typically it. I think we need every other thing.